Hello! So I figured I would go through my Parks on the Air setup with you. If you are a gear nerd like me, oftentimes I really enjoy seeing what other people are using. So this is my setup. Obviously, depending on what I'm doing, whether I'm backpacking into a park to set up or simply driving up to a parking lot to set up, will often dictate how much gear I bring. But this is what I call my grab and go setup, and it contains these items here. So we'll just start this way and work over. If I'm doing any satellite comms, I just have the Baofeng UV5R. Everyone needs a Baofeng, right? It's light, it's durable, it's cheap. I don't mind if I drop it in a puddle. And it works really well for satellite spotting specifically. I made a simple tape measure Yagi antenna that I use for satellite work. And this thing just screws right in. If I'm backpacking in someplace, I typically don't bring this because I don't have the Yagi with me. So in those situations, I only bring my normal HT. This is my everyday, the Yaesu FT60. This is a great entry-level HT. Has a lot of features, but not all of the features, but it's perfectly good. It does 2 meters and 70 centimeters. And I upgraded the antenna to a diamond antenna, which is little, you know, you got the whip, but it works really well. And it's a little bit heavier, but it's a great radio. Highly recommend. I have it set up with the quick attachment, so I can just pop this on, and if I'm just going to be doing stuff short range where a rubber ducky antenna will work, I have one of those that I keep in the kit that I can just pop right on. So this typically hangs on the outside of my bag and is at least on the wilderness frequency or the simplex frequency, and I can hear if anyone's around. It's rare, but you never know. As far as the power goes, I have 2 batteries. One I carry for the radio, which is the Biano Power. This is the 9 amp hour. It's pretty big. They do come smaller, but I've never run out of battery life. Typically I'm not doing like a 5-hour activation. I tend to go set up, work through a couple pile-ups, and then get out of there. Rarely am I actually activating for more than an hour. It doesn't happen that often, and this thing is plenty of power for all of that. Tomorrow, in fact, I'm going to be doing a 15-mile hike where I'm going to go through 4 different parks, and I plan to set up at each one. Well, it'll be 3 different setups because one of the parks is a double, and you know how that goes. So I'll be setting up 3 different times, and I am fully confident that this battery will have enough power to get me through all 3 of those activations. So excellent batteries. I do have a battery bank that I carry with me. This is just for my camera or my cell phone or any other things that need charging, my headlamp. This is a little bit heavier of a one than I carry in my actual backpacking gear, where I'll be actually going out on trail for days at a time, because the weight tends to add up a little bit more the further you go. So this one works really well. It's great. It wasn't that much. It is... just power bank is what it's called, but it's 38,800 milliamp hour, so it works really well. I always have a battery backup for my Yaesu HT. I do have the one where you just put in AA's, but I haven't needed it. That's like an emergency one I keep at home. Having this is plenty of a backup. So 2 batteries with an HT, it's plenty for my purposes. Especially if I'm setting up right out of my vehicle, I always have this on me, because should my battery ever die, I can always just use the battery from my vehicle, or I tend to have like an extra lawn and garden battery laying around that I carry, and this plugs right in, and it has been converted to just alligator clips, so I can clip right on to another battery and keep going, and this plugs into my radio. So it's just a power cord for my radio with a fuse on the positive line. So that's just a backup. I don't carry this with me all the time, which is why it's not in my actual go bag. Put that aside. So let's go ahead and get into the antenna. So the antenna that I use most often is the Sodabeam's Band Hopper 3. I did a lot of research on which antennas to get for POTA activations, especially if you're just starting out. And this one really spoke to me. It is amazing. It works really well. You can set it up very conveniently. I always like to keep things in extra bags, keep them dry. So this works that there is a central point here, and this feed line, kind of undo this here so you can see. Now you've probably seen this in some of my videos of me actually setting it up, but here's a little bit more in-depth look at the Sodabeams Band Hopper 3. So you have these different winders here. There's 3 of them. One of them is just a guy line. It's just for being the third point of contact to hold up your mast. If I'm just running a rope up into a tree and pulling it down, and I don't even use this guy line. So I have an extra hair tie that I keep around it just to make sure it doesn't come undone. You would pull this part up, which it comes down off of here. So you have your guy line and then the 2 different lines, which are both the legs of the dipole. So this would form an inverted V formation, and they also act as the first and second portion of the guy lines. So you send them out in 3 different directions, 2 of which are the actual antenna, the third is the guy line. And you can line them up to where they're pretty straight. You don't have to get them to where they're, you know, coming in really far. If you put them out and get them taut straight, and then you put your mast up, you can bring the guy line out, and it keeps those front lines running pretty much at 180 degrees, if not just a little bit less. So it works really well. The wire is so thin, I would say be careful with it. I haven't had any issues, but I'm extra careful with my gear. And then there's these alligator clips directly on the line, which you can see. So this setup does 20 meters, 30 meters, and 40 meters. And depending on what you want to do, you just clip the alligator clips together, which effectively extend or shorten the antenna. So I almost always have it on 20 meters just because that's my go-to. I'm usually setting up during the day, and 20 meters is kind of a fail-safe for me for always finding people to make contact with. So the Sodabeams Band Hopper 3, highly recommend. It's a great antenna. The feed line is plenty long to come down and plug into the radio, but I do also carry extra coax, which I'll show you in a minute. The end of it is just the quick adapter, and I always keep another adapter to bring it up to PL259. Works really well. This item is the mast. So if I'm not around trees, or I'm somewhere where I don't want to be throwing a rope into a tree and messing with it, I have this. So it is a bit heavier. I wouldn't want to carry this for multiple days, but if I'm just going out for a single day or even working out of my vehicle, this is a great option. This is the Tactical 7000 HDS from Sodabeams, and it says exclusively from Sodabeams, so you have to go through them. It's the 24-foot mast, telescoping, just comes out and works really well. Sets up, it's just tension fit. I have only had it fall. A section fell once, and that's when it was like -5 when I was set up, and I just don't think I snugged it up enough. My hands weren't working very well. Understandably so. But this works amazingly, and it ties perfectly in. It's the exact height that you would want for the Sodabeams Band Hopper 3. There are taller and shorter masts you can get, and I'm sure you can make them work with that. You may have to extend some of the line for the guy lines, but this Tactical 7000 HDS works perfectly, and it's, I believe, between $60 and $70 US, so it works really well. Moving into the actual radio bag. So this is just a cheap bag I got from Target, but it works really well. It's Swiss gear, probably see by the emblem there. I always keep a carabiner with me, extra. You never know when you're gonna need them. So it's there, weighs practically nothing, and it's endlessly useful. So inside, I have basically the entire radio setup plus some extra things. So we'll go through it. Up here, I have 2 lengths of 550 cord, parachute cord. So if I do want to just tie up into a tree, I have that option. You never know when you're gonna need it. This is quite a quite a long one that I keep around, and then I have the shorter option as well, even just to extend. I always keep an extra pen in here and a pencil, because sometimes ink isn't reliable, and pencils seem to always work. I keep the ARRL logbook. I love these. They are my favorite logbook. Like this smaller version fits right in here. Everything I need is right on the page, especially for POTA. It's got the bare minimum here and plenty to work with. So excellent logbooks. I use the larger format as well at my base station, but for POTA, these work great. The bag of adapters. This is probably one of the most important things that you can have with you, because your plan is good in your head, you've thought about everything, but you get out to the field and you realize, oh no, I have to connect SMA to PL259. How am I going to do that? Adapters. I have one of each, and then I have a redundant set of the female to female PL259, because there always seems to be a shortage of those. So I keep those, as well as some ferrite beads and some electrical tape in this little baggie here. And I've used it tons. And as soon as one comes out, you have to make sure to put it back in when you're done. That's an important thing, and I've made that mistake before, even a recent POTA. I forgot that, oh, that adapter's still on my other antenna. Luckily, I had provision for that. So keep the adapters around. Moving on, I keep a Slim Jim, VHF, UHF Slim Jim that I can run up into a tree and plug my HT into, and that's more of a, if I want to do any 2 meter, 70 centimeter POTA activations, or in case of emergencies. This reaches a lot farther than just an HT antenna. Even the diamond antenna isn't going to go as far as this, especially if you can hoist this up into a tree. So it works really well, and I keep it around. This was made by one of our other hams here in Bloomington, Indiana, and I appreciate that. Coax. Always have a length of coax with you. Oh, and you can see right there I have a female to female adapter left on here. These things disappear so easily. You get them on here, you've connected 3 different connectors on, and you forget that they're there. But luckily it's still here. I will put that back in the bag after this video. But I keep a length of coax because sometimes you want to set up further away than your feed line from your antenna can actually reach, or maybe your antenna doesn't actually have a feed line built in, like the Sodabeam's Band Hopper 3. So it's good to have coax with you. This is just the RG8X, nice and light and malleable and durable, works great. Have coax with you. As for the radio, I use the Xiegu G90. Can't say enough good things about this radio. The price point's right where I needed it to be as a fairly new ham. I'm in my 2nd year now, and as you know, these things cost a lot, radio equipment in general. This did not break the bank too bad. It was around $500 and came with the interface for digital modes and the extra little stand and all that stuff. You get it through Radio Oddities, where I got this one through. Excellent radio. It's 20 watt max, which, you know, you don't have the punch that some of the other ones do, but with the antennas that I use, I've never had a single issue. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get through POTA activation, but I've never not been able to activate a park yet. I'm sure it'll happen someday, but this thing does great. Excuse me. So the Xiegu G90, excellent radio, and it's got a nice hand mic that comes with it, obviously. The other things I keep in here is the actual power cord for this radio, and it plugs right into the power pools on my Biono power supply battery. And then I mentioned that I had a provision in place for when I forgot the adapter that I needed for the Sodabeam's Band Hopper 3. That provision is that I always keep an extra 20 meter in-fed half-wave antenna in the bag. This was made by the same ham who made the Slim Jim, and it's pretty basic, but it works really well. It's saved me a couple of times. It's perfectly, it's in-fed, so it's easy to just throw one end up into a tree, and then I have my coax and everything else I need to just run it right into my radio. So this has saved my butt a couple of times when I've forgotten other items to run my regular antenna, or I just didn't want to pack a whole extra antenna knowing that I had this one in there and I could make it work. So it's light and it just fits in this compartment perfectly, and I just keep it in there, so at least I always have an antenna with the radio all the time. So if I somehow forget that one, I can still make the activation work. And that's about it. I will either add or remove items depending on what I'm doing. Sometimes I remove the mast, sometimes I add in a lawn and garden battery for a bigger power supply, or a table and chair, you know, if you want to go all comfortable. But this is what I call my grab and go POTA gear, and I hope you enjoyed seeing it.